welcome to Ladies Talking Leafs. I'm Chris.
And I'm Sil.
And welcome to episode number 3. Things, unfortunately, are not getting any better for the Leafs since our last episode. They're now 4-4-1 after the loss to the LA Kings last night. We're doing this podcast on Sunday night. So, we're just getting ready for the Leafs to hit the ice in Anaheim. But it's funny, this record 4-4-1 is exactly the same record they had last season at the end of October.
I know, that's so bizarre. Yeah. So I was actually trying to think about, how we felt at the beginning of last season. And I think because Austin Matthews was out at that time, maybe we weren't as concerned because he wasn't playing. So we were like, okay, so there's like this huge piece that is missing right now. I think we had that in the back of our minds that, when he comes back, things will be different.
That's true. I didn't even think of that.
I think that's part of it. And now he is in the lineup and, he had a slow start last year when he came back, but there was the injury to basically be, so it just made more sense. And right now it just doesn't make any sense. So anyway, there is lots for us to dissect. And to start off, we want to start off with a positive. So we just wanted to mention that Mitch Marner has moved into 9th spot on the Leafs all-time list for assists, passing Doug Gilmour. So that's actually quite a feat. Yeah. He has had like 2 extra years to do it because I think Dougie really only played for the Leafs for 5 years. But anyway, Marner now has 323 assists and as I just said, in his 7th season with the Leafs. And also Austin Matthews got his 200th assist of his NHL career versus the Dallas Stars. And our captain, John Tavares, got his 900th career point versus the Coyotes. So now we're going to pivot a little bit and we want to share a couple of comments that we got on our social media platform from some of our followers. We wanted to get your thoughts on the Leafs start to the season. So from our Facebook page, Ron Ashley wrote to us, mediocre at best. I wish the players could take a page from Kampf's book. Love his work ethic. I've been a Hall supporter for the years he's been in Toronto, but I think he's worn out his welcome.
Yeah.
So what do you think of that comment, Chris?
I was surprised that because Ron Ashley is he's a top fan on our Facebook page. He follows us a lot, which is great. He looks at all of our posts and we thank him for that. But I was surprised that he's a Hall supporter. He was one. But I mean, I guess that first season when he was with Muzzin, or the first couple of seasons playing with Muzzin, he was really good. But I don't know. It's just like he said, it's mediocre. Hall has been, I don't know. He hasn't done anything to him, in my opinion, that Keith should keep him in the lineup. Like, I think he needs to just sit just a game or two, regardless of who comes into the lineup to replace him. I think he needs to sit and just get his mind together, the mental part of the game, and just make sure he's in a good spot that way. But and as
what I think for Hall, what I worry about is, like, I just, if I think about that game where he scored the winner and he was the first star, remember that game? And he came out and he was so excited and everybody was so happy for him. And then, the next game or, however many games since then, he's had these bad moments and he just seems to me so anxious. I think he just doesn't have that confidence right now. And I think he needs the sports psychologist big time.
Yeah.
If they're going to actually do anything with him and keep him here.
Yeah.
Because he can't go from that like high, just being so excited when that one game went your way. And then, when it doesn't go your way, he just seems really unstable right now as far as that
very
goes.
Up and down.
He's on a roller coaster. Yeah.
Very up and down. And he needs to be more even keel to figure that out. I don't know if he's going to figure that out here in Toronto or somewhere else, but But yeah, so and in regards to David Kampf, I mean, we'll talk about him a little bit later on. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of not the great. I mean, it's great that he's playing well, but it's not the greatest that he's like basically our top forward. Right?
Exactly.
But yeah, I like Ron said here, it's mediocre. It is the start of the season, and a lot of people have been saying that on social media. It's only 9 games in, but I mean, there's only so long you can say that. So yeah, so as we go through these comments from social media, just a reminder, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Our handle is at LTL1917. And don't forget to check out our Ko-fi page as well. There you can see a gallery of game photos that we've taken from over the years. And if you choose to, you can support us by buying us a coffee. So another comment we got from another Facebook follower, Michael Bate. He wrote, "Too many no-shows on a nightly basis, no sense of urgency, lackluster. Something has to give or it's going to be a very long season." Yeah.
Well, I think it's funny that he mentions the sense of urgency, like looking at that LA game. There was some urgency there. It was actually not urgency. It was panic.
Yes.
Like I haven't seen them so just, it was chaotic.
Yeah.
How out of sorts they were.
Yeah.
And it's like they couldn't even, so it wasn't even lackluster because they looked like they were trying, but what they were trying was like just so nonsensical. Like they were not playing as a team. Like there is, he's talking about, like that comment, too many passengers kind of.
Yeah.
But it's like everybody was trying to row the canoe and they were all going in circles. Like it was just
like
crazy. Like that's how bad it seems to be getting.
Yeah, there was that one shift with, I guess it was kind of the shift change got mixed up and Riley was on at the same time as I think it was Sandine. They were in the middle of shifts anyways, of changing shifts. And that's when it was like discombobulated, the whole thing. Like, and that LA scored on that play because they didn't know where to go. Like Riley didn't know whether to go left or right side because he was playing with Sandine. They just didn't, there was no communication there. It was just, and I mean, after the game, I listened to another podcast from with David Alter, who's a writer with the Sports Illustrated, I believe he's with, and now he's doing a podcast after post games. And he said actually in the room after that LA game that they took that game quite hard. Like the players really looked down, which kind of had me, I was kind of 50-50 on it. I was like, I hope it's, again, they might need that psychologist a little bit more at this time to try and get them through this because you like to hear that, like, obviously they don't want to be playing the way they have been, but and so you like to hear that they are feeling it. It's not like they're just going out there and just going through the motions kind of thing. They're trying to figure this out, but then on the other end, sometimes that can work in a different way, and it could make things not go so well for the in future games.
I agree with you. Like, I'm not surprised that he said that they were really down because like that's what I saw is that they were really like, I think they actually did try last night, and it's just nothing was working. So I think I'm not surprised that they seemed dumbfounded because they just seemed like they were sort of in shock.
Yeah.
But it's just, you can't play like that. So I don't know if this is on Keefe and the coaching staff that because whether or not he says it, if he feels it, I'm talking about Keefe here, that he needs to fix this immediately and he's not loose, then his players are going to be tight as well, So I kind of feel like the whole organization is basically on pins and needles right now. And you can't play that way.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. Like they're all, gripping their sticks so tight right now. And that's just testament. Like, that's why nothing's working.
Yeah.
You know, their passing is crap. Like, their transition game is horrible.
Yeah.
Nothing is going right because they're all kind of worried, you know, whereas last year at this time, you know, testament to that their record is the same, but they weren't this tight last year at this time, you know?
Yeah. No, it's, I don't know. And then it's, well, I mean, tonight versus Anaheim versus the Ducks, they're the 32nd team right now. So they're saying that it's basically similar to that game versus Chicago, the Blackhawks last year, where Matthews basically got everybody on the bench to wake up, and I mean, it shouldn't have to come down to this, but it has, and they definitely have to win this game tonight. Like, it's there's no question about it. They got to win.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen.
It's got to be a statement.
I don't know what's going
to be a statement.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen if they don't win tonight. I still don't think it's going to be like any changes to do with coaching and that. I still don't think it's that far yet, but something else has to give when it comes to the players on the ice, who's playing in the lineup, like whether it be, like, it can't just be Wayne Simmons or I don't know, whoever else, Victor Mete that they've sat out. It has to be other players, and but before, there's other things I want to say about that later on the show, but we'll get to that.
So as you can see, you know, we've highlighted a couple of these comments, and of course, we love to hear from you. And whether it be the team or thoughts about our show, you leave us a comment on social media, or you can DM us there, or you can email us at ladiestalkinleafs@gmail.com. As always, we want to thank you for your support and for listening. And don't forget, we are now on the Believe Network and reaching out to listeners all around the world, because we know Leafs Nation is everywhere. So now it's time to get into the show and dig a little deeper into the Leafs. Slow start to the season, so we're going to break it all down, starting with the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then we're going to run the Ladies Talkin' Leafs highlight reel. Yes, we did find some highlights. And in our third period segment, we're going to discuss what seems to be the never-ending narrative about the Leafs team having an issue with its culture, and how at least some of the belief is driven by the media. So, without any further ado, let's talk Leafs.
Okay, the good, the bad, the ugly. Starting off with the good, as we always do, and that there wasn't too much good the last couple of weeks, but one of the bright spots, which it's kind of well known out there, is our goaltending, Ilya Samsonov, which is kind of odd because in our last show we were talking about, or at the start of the season anyways, we were talking about how goaltending maybe a problem with Murray going down, but to injury. But Ilya Samsonov has really taken the rope and going with it. Basically, he's doing his job in a really tough situation. I think, like, he's basically joined a new team and been. Especially being the goaltender of the Leafs, everybody knows that's one of the toughest jobs in the NHL, and he's right there in the fire. And he's had he's kept them in every game that he's been in. He starts off the game sometimes. In some games, he's a little bit shaky, but he's always managed by the middle of the first period. He's always managed to get things under control, get his game under control, and he's good the rest of the way. So. And I find it funny too. I don't know why the team has basically given him access, I guess, to the media at the after games. Like, he's only been here 9 games, and his English it's good, but I mean, it's a little bit, I don't know. I just think for those types of situations, when you're going through something like this, you should really give it to a more veteran player of the team that's been here a little bit longer. But he's doing it yesterday after the Kings game. Like, they were asking him what he thinks should be, what he thinks is wrong with the team. And he just basically is saying, he goes, no, the guys aren't happy. He said, right. He goes, everybody's quiet. And, he goes, and he said, lack of confidence. He said, maybe a little bit, but it's just like, I'm thinking to myself, it's great. Like, he's a likable guy. Like they said he was with the Capitals as well. And nothing that he said was wrong, but I just don't think that they should put him in that position, being somebody new to the team. And, but I mean, his game has been great. And, I can't imagine where we would be at if we didn't, like, if he wasn't playing well too. Oh, good God. I don't know. But yeah, that's my good, his, Ilya Samsonov.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. I mean, he's played great. And I did look, I think I have seen some comments about how people have said, oh, well, he started the season really great with Washington last year as well. He started at like 9-1 to start the season, but his goals against and his actual stats, like in-game stats, weren't as good for them as they are right now. So, I mean, even yesterday's game, you can't really blame him on much of that. No. And as far as him being interviewed, I think that the media is going to him a lot because they like his personality. So I think that's part of the reason, because he's not giving the canned answer that a lot of other players do. And I actually think that he said something really important in that comment that you mentioned, is that he said the players are not happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that you can tell, because we know that when they're playing well, there's joy there. And right now there ain't no joy. Anyway, so moving on to my good, I had chosen the aforementioned David Kampf. He is kind of like the steady Eddie of our team right now. I think he really picked up from where he left off last year, and he's doing all of the same things that he did. And he's, I think people thought that, if he's, put down on the fourth line, kind of buried there, that, he managed to get some offense last year. Well, that's obviously going to disappear. Well, lo and behold, that's not the case. He already has three goals and 1 assist for 4 points. He is even on the season right now, even with all of the goals that are going in.
Yeah.
His average time on ice is 13.28 right now. He's just over 50% on the faceoff dot, and he's had 3 blocks and 9 hits. So I like our listener that we were mentioning before.
Ron.
It was
Ron Ashley.
It was Ron Ashley. Yes, he said that everyone should look to him. I think that is a completely valid comment, because the guy is the same all the time.
Yeah.
So at least that's what you want.
Yeah, no.
Consistency.
No, exactly. And, I couldn't understand why he was on the fourth line, I guess, to begin with this season. That he definitely has proven that he deserves to go back to being the third line center. And I think I heard some rumblings that he might be I guess paired with Engvall again, because Engvall is like him and Engvall, and it was Mikheyev last year on the other side. But they had him and Engvall seemed to have a good chemistry, so I heard that they might be back together again for this game with the Ducks. But no, he's definitely.
Well, if anybody can help Engvall, I'd like that.
Yeah. But yeah, so David Kampf, though, I think he's actually playing better than he did last year. I think I think that might be the case.
Yeah,
like he's I don't know. He just seems he has a knack to being around the net, like and getting that. He got a winning goal. I think it was a game-winning goal. And last week, I think it was, I don't know if it was just Dallas. But yeah, no, he's done everything to that, like you said, or like our Facebook follower said, that people should look at his work ethic and just keeps going. So, yeah, those are definitely I think the only two bright spots out of the last couple of weeks are Ilya Samsonov and David Kampf.
All right. So now, sadly, we have to move to some not so good points. So we're going to look at what we think is not going well. So our bad segment. So what do you think, Chris?
So the bad right now, I'm really disappointed at the depth players that Kyle Dubas picked up. Like they basically have not given us anything. And I don't want to, well, I mean, I'm just going to blame it on them anyways. Forget about the coaching and trying to, like, the coaching obviously has to do with it. They have to find that, I guess that chemistry or that, like, to find the connection between the players that play well together, obviously. But I mean, we're only 9 games in, but then the players have to do something too, to show that they have some, I don't know. It just doesn't look like they're interested. Sometimes they're not engaged at all. These, like, I'm talking about Obey Cobell, Aston Reese. I mean, so many people were so high on Aston Reese. Like, he had a great preseason with us coming in on a PTO, but then have you noticed him at all in this?
No.
Like in these first 7 games, I think he's played, or 8 games, he sat out 1 or 2 games. He was benched, but or had the view from the press box. But yeah, and even Obey Kubel, I mean, during the preseason, I remember he had a couple of like good hits, and I was starting to like that gritty kind of style of play, but I haven't seen that through the 7, 8 games that he's played. So it's like, what, they got the contract and then that's it sort of thing. You're a Maple Leaf and taking all the perks of being a Maple Leaf and that's it. Like, I don't know. I just don't, I'm not impressed with that. And then of course there's Pierre Engvall, who thinks said he was going to be a 20 goal scorer, but we really, like we mentioned, I think we mentioned during our patio season, like the guy needs to figure out, like, we need him to score, yes, but it's not to say that's his main focus. He's a big player. He needs to use that size. He has speed, and that's what we need him for, to be able to use that size and speed to get in there on the forecheck. And if he can chip in with a goal, great. He finally got a goal last night it was last night, right? Yes. I think versus the King.
Yeah. Yeah, he sort of redeemed himself after
yes, and then
stupid pass that he made. And then, like, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Just keep your head in the freaking game.
Yeah. And then when he scored that goal, I was going, yes, so now maybe someone will look at him for being a traded, right? Like, because he got the goal. But yeah, and then what happened to Dennis Malgin? Like, really? They were going on about him, saying how great he was, and which he played so great, and during the preseason, or he's really good. And then he gets into a few games and it's just the same as it was when he had his first time here. Like, you just don't notice him.
I do think that his size is a factor, because he doesn't have the, like, Mitch's quality, you know, and actually he's smaller than Mitch anyways, but he doesn't, or even like maybe Bunting, like where they can he can't really absorb the physicality like Bunting does. And he doesn't have Mitch's quality that he can just roll off of that stuff. Yeah. So I do think his size, when you're getting into regular, you know, in-season NHL games, is a factor. And I mean, the other part of the equation, I think for all of these guys, I think that some of the panic in the coaching staff, maybe in you know, management in particular as well, potentially, has trickled down to the fact that they're not sticking with any of these combinations. You know, they just want, Like if something doesn't go well one game, then they make a change. So like that makes it difficult for new players, I think, to be able to, create any chemistry and to basically,
but if they're,
act on the feedback that they're given also.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that when you're not doing the same thing and you're not playing with the same people the next time?
Yeah, but then they don't show anything. This is my thing too. When they play, they don't show anything in that game. I know it's only one game, but I mean, it's from game to game. Let's just say like they've had 8 games. How long are you going to wait?
I agree with you. That's true. But I agree with you that that I'm not seeing the energy that we're supposed to be expecting from them. And there's a lot of different ways for them to show that as well. But at the same time, they're tinkering too much to start with. Like now it's too late.
Yeah.
Because really they should have given them like the first 5 games to just, sink or swim.
Yeah.
And be able to show that they can make incremental improvements. But now it's 9 games. So now the panic button is even being like pushed even harder. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I do think that had some impact as well.
Yeah, now I think it's really up to Keefe. Really, it's up to the coach now to find something that's going to work, because he's been messing around with it through the first 9 games, and obviously nothing has worked. But now it's up to him to figure it out, and figure it out fast, basically. And we're not talking about, obviously David Kampf is a depth player. Obviously, we're not including him in this conversation. We just said that he was our one of our stars of the last couple of weeks, and Kelly Yarncroke as well. He's been okay. He hasn't,
except that he takes stupid penalties.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the person who's taken the most penalties, it's probably him. So that's also that's a mind focus thing as well.
Yeah.
When you're taking dumb penalties at bad times, that's not good.
Yeah. All right. Do you have any other bad, or speaking of penalties, we can go?
My bad is which I mentioned before is the transition game, and really coming from the defensive zone in particular.
Yeah.
We are not getting the puck out of our own end. Last night, actually, I don't know, many nights this week, we played almost the whole game, it seemed like, in our own end. And we just haven't been able to make that crisp, smart pass out of the zone. Instead of passing, out along the boards, where somehow people think that it's smart to pass, across the zone. Yeah. And it's getting picked off. So these things they just seem so unlike our players in a lot of instances. I mean, Justin Hall has made some grievous errors in this regard, but other defensemen have also made their fair share of mistakes.
Like Sandine made one too, bonehead.
Yeah,
mistake.
Yeah,
last
but I mean, he's young. Yeah. He didn't have a training camp. I can forgive him that because he's going to make mistakes. But the rest of these guys, they don't really have a lot of excuses when it comes to that, because they should all know better. But overall, our whole team, even the forwards are making mistakes, not back checking properly, not taking the right man.
Yeah.
And nobody seems to be able to connect on a pass, to get down to the other end without it being picked off by somebody and moving in the other direction. So to me, that's my bad. And
it's almost like they're, I don't know if it's they're not thinking too much when they are making those outlet passes.
I think they're thinking too much. I do. I think that is the problem right now. I think everybody is so gripping their sticks and thinking too much. They're not loose enough. I think that times, maybe last year at this time, we were worried that they're too loose.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're the opposite. They've completely swung in the other direction. So they kind of have to find a happy medium in there, and get their confidence back. Because right now, that's what I see, is that they are just
and it comes panicked down to they know. I mean, they've known this for a while though, throughout the summer, that basically like Dubas has put all of his chips in to say, this is it. Like, this is the group he's going with. And really, they haven't done anything like to give him back anything to say that he's made that right decision. But it's kind of fun. Like, Dubas in a way has put all the chips in, and that's what's possibly made them gripping their sticks like this too to start the season. Because they know, but this is their 7th season together, right? Like, is like how, like, I don't know, they're veterans now, this group of the players that have been here for a while. Like, it shouldn't be like this. This is why in some cases the jolt of a trade of a big name, maybe that would have been, I mean, it's not going to happen now. They can't do that now, but maybe
well, who says they can't do that now?
Well, because all the teams are just, I saw some ridiculous comments. I don't know where on Twitter, somebody basically acknowledged that it was ridiculous to have this trades with Marner involved. Obviously, everybody goes on Mitch, and they're saying
that would be dumb.
They said though to trade him for Garnet Hathaway and I don't know, some other couple of players from the Capitals and a first round draft pick, and I'm like, what? I'm like, are these people like insane? I'm like, why do you even bother? He retweeted this, right? He's like this is just, listen, he goes, yeah, it's like putting Mitch Marner for a bag of pucks, basically, right? And I'm like, anyways, yeah.
Regardless of any of that kind of fantasy land thinking, one thing that you mentioned, they've known that the start of the season's coming and that what this year means. So with that, I mean, for all the things that they work on in the summer for their game, you would think that they would have given them some homework to work on their heads.
Yeah.
Like, there are things that they could have done to, prepare them mentally, or to at least tell them that that's part of your preparation.
Yeah.
So that they're not coming in and now they're like, in shock that they're, I mean, we talked about it. Their schedule is not an easy schedule to start with. So that is actually true, but they weren't mentally prepared for that. And that's something that they should have been.
That's for sure.
So anyways, let's move on to our last thing, because we're going on a little bit long on this whole thing.
But it's, let's get into the ugly here. And of course, the ugly, I wanted it part of the last show as my ugly, but we decided to give them a break. It's the officiating. No longer giving them a break, because I'm sorry, when Marner got, basically, he was hitting the numbers, and it was against Winnipeg when his face got messed up and there was no call. I could not believe that. I was just like, what the hell is that? And I mean, I know our power play and our PK have both been atrocious, let's just say. But still, when it comes to these missed calls, it's just outrageous. I think I think Jamie Benn was the one that actually cross-checked Matthews in the ribs. He got away with that one, and that's what people are saying. They think Matthews is injured, and they're thinking that it's from that, but basically nothing happened from that. And then on the reverse, when penalties get called on us, like the one in San Jose, it was like we were down 2 men for 2 minutes. But the second call, it was a really chintzy call. Like, some of these calls that they're going against us on the reverse, like they're not great. Let's just say they're pretty lame. And I don't like them. I did look up, actually, we're kind of, I think we're 10th or 11th spot in the, like, as to how many penalties been called against us. So we're kind of like in the middle of the pack, which isn't that bad, but it's just the fact that the types of calls that are going against us, and we need to stay out of the box. I mean, last night especially, we're friggin' all night in the box, it seemed, in my opinion, and we're always on the PK, and our PK sucks right now. Whereas last year, the last couple of years, it was like one of the better things that we had on our team. But
I don't think that we came out came out with guns a-blazing at the beginning of the season with the PK last year either, though. It did get really, really good.
Right.
But really, really good after January.
And again, this comes...
Interestingly, when Mitch really found his game.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's true. But again, this comes down to, which is a longer conversation too, is so many coaches in the background. You would think that out of all those coaches behind the bench, and we have the special, like for special teams, we have the power play and the penalty kill coaches specific for that. It's like, what the hell are they doing while this has been going on? Like, I don't know. I don't see any changes in the plan for the power play, like as to how they approach the entries and that. I don't know.
Right.
Anyways, that has nothing to do with officiating. I just think the officiating has been garbage.
Yeah. With the officiating, one thing I will say, like, you know, you mentioned we're like in the middle of the pack, but sometimes it's not how many are called, it's when they're called.
Yes.
Like they just seem to be always at just terrible times where it just really sucks the momentum out of our game or takes something away from us that, you know, they've worked so hard to get, like, you know, that goal that got called back from that so-called hand pass. Like that was like a brutal. And that wasn't even the officials on the ice. That was like the situation room that did that. But that, you know, those types of things, it's like the timing of it, because it's like every game it ebbs and flows. And
it sucks the life out of the team, basically. Once
it totally,
and when you already don't have the confidence and you're trying to build something, it just takes it all away when something like that happens. You're right. Yes, yeah, I agree with that. But yeah. Anyways, we're gonna move on because no doubt there hasn't been very many great moments over the past couple of weeks. But we have found a few bright spots. So let's move on and roll the Ladies Talking Leafs highlight reel. Okay, so in number 3, coming in at number 3, beating the Jets. Wayne Simmons got into his first game of the season and chipped in with a nice assist on David Kamp's goal, which was the game-winning goal by the fourth line. So we like to see that. Yeah, just beating the Jets and their stupidity from last season, I think, with the whole Stanley Cup thing and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know what's up with these teams and our team song, the goal song or whatever. Friggin' San Jose.
I know.
San Jose has it on. Like, is it that big of a deal? I think they're just doing it because of the media and like social media. Like they just hype it so much up because they don't like Hall & Oates, I guess. I don't know. Like, what the hell?
No, what it is that it's a big deal for every team to beat us.
Yeah.
And it's like they want to, there's no respect.
No.
Really. They want to, you know, they're just so happy to beat us that they make fun of it.
Yeah. And I just don't see, and this has been going on forever, obviously. And I mean, it's just ridiculous anyway. So that's why I was happy about beating the Jets because, just because of their attitude and that Pierre-Luc Dubois is an idiot. I can't stand him. And somebody like he thinks he's some chip off the old block there, but he's not that great, let's just say. And yeah, so I liked it. I liked that they beat them. So that's our number 3. Going on to number 2 is the tic-tac goal scored by Marner in the game versus the Sharks. It was a beautiful cross-crease pass from Riley. Sorry, I was going to say Marley. Maybe I'm thinking the Toronto Marlies. No, beautiful cross-crease pass from Riley to set up Marner for the goal. And I watched it over and over again a few times. And I'm like, why can't that happen a few more times? Like for these guys, right? Where it's tic-tac goals or into the net, right?
Yeah, and that's not his usual spot either.
No.
So his usual type of goal, that was more like a Tavares goal or even an Austin goal.
Yeah.
Austin gets goals there sometimes. So, you know, that's good to see. Even Bunting sometimes scores those types of goals. So, you know what? Get them how you can.
Yeah.
That's basically it, right? So you want to see them getting to those like dirty areas, I guess. And you're going to be rewarded if you do that. Yeah. So he was willing to go there and Yeah, and that was a beautiful pass, like you said, by Riley. So. Yeah. Okay, so our number one spot is no big surprise, and that goes to Ilya Samsonov. In the game versus Vegas, he really kept the Leafs in the game from the start, and the final score was 3-1, but it could have been a lot worse. And after Saturday's game versus the Kings, his save percentage was at .920, and he's 4-2 to start the season. So, I mean, he's doing everything he can to keep the team in the game. So they really need to reward him with some goals at the other end.
Yeah. He's not playing tonight, I assume, versus the Ducks, I assume.
No, I think Shaw.
Yeah, I assume he's, because normally goalies don't play back-to-backs anymore. But he'll probably be in net on Wednesday, and thankfully and hopefully he just stays healthy throughout this time while we wait for Matt Murray to get back to 100% and be able to come in the net. But yeah, no, like we said earlier, he's come in here to a new team, and he bet on himself with the contract, with a 1-year contract, and so far so good. So yeah, he's been really solid in goal for us, and definitely deserves our number one spot for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we, like you said before, we can't even imagine where we would be if our goaltending was also a problem at this point. So we have enough problems, including the team's culture, according to some. So let's get into that now in our segment, The Third Period.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm going to be ranting here a little bit. Hopefully I'll
still go for it.
Will have to stop me if I go on too long, but I know this is kind of living in the past, but as a Leaf fan, and for both me and Silly, I'm going to speak for her too, I think like we're so appreciative of the experience that we had following the Leafs in that 93 playoff run with Doug Gilmour and Wendell Clark leading the way, along with Felix Potvin in goal. I mean, at the time, there was no social media, there was no analytics, and as a fan, you just watched the game and you could talk in person to other Leaf fans about what's good or not so good about the team. It wasn't through chat things and texting and all that. You just sat, you were by the water cooler at work and you just talked about the Leafs.
Yeah, if it wasn't for that, there wouldn't be Ladies Talking Leafs.
That's right. Yeah, so I don't know. It got me going. I was listening to someone on Toronto sports radio, and they were comparing the team's culture to the Leafs team culture to other Toronto professional sports teams like the Raptors and the Blue Jays. And I don't know, I just didn't think that was, I didn't think it was right to do that. I mean, in the case of the Raptors, like they've been around now 27 years. Yes, they've won the championship, but I mean, first I have to say I know nothing about basketball. So, but the move that the Raptors made, getting Kawhi Leonard, like that was the huge piece that basically put them over the top, right? So, the Raptors management recognized the team needed a jolt. They did that. But again, you can't really compare that because of the way the salary cap works in the NHL, right? And with the Blue Jays, I mean, I don't know, they're kind of like at the beginning of the, I guess, process to get through the playoffs. They're kind of where we were maybe 3 years ago, I would say. So,
yeah, and it could get ugly for them in short order.
Unfortunately, this playoffs for them wasn't that great either. Mm-hmm. But we'll see how it goes next year for them. And but I just didn't think that. I just think it was kind of bogus to actually bring up the team's culture, and the way, like some media too, the way they just say they look at a player's body language and how, like, especially with Mitch Marner, they always are looking. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what exactly do you want from that player? For me, he's not happy right now, obviously, like the whole team is, and he's just straight-faced, stone-faced. And I mean, yeah, maybe he could be a little bit better in his, I guess, demeanor a little bit with the media, but he's not going to be all happy. Like I think they read too much into these things with body language.
They do, because, part of the problem is, I think, with the media is that the media is so saturated. There are the print media, they're competing with bloggers, and then there's us, podcast type people. Everyone is trying to get an angle, and basically sometimes they need to create that.
Yeah, I guess it works because we're talking about it. I don't know. I just think, I just think it's ridiculous, some of the things that they come up with that way. And
well, yeah, and I think it's unfair to speculate about what a player is feeling and thinking when you absolutely have no right to do that. You don't know anything about what they're thinking, what they're feeling based on how they look. They're basically, pretending to be amateur psychologists when they're doing that. So, if you want some credibility, why don't you interview somebody who's actually an expert then and break down their body language and see what they say, but for all these people to be, saying these things and harping on it all the time, it is unfair.
I mean, I think
for sure.
We talked with Sil, like off the show anyways, before we started recording. We were saying how like we understand like a lot of the younger generation now, like they never went through that experience from, obviously they weren't around, let's just say back in 1993. And some of them have gone through it in the Sundin era, in the 2000s, and they've seen playoff runs there. And now though there's like a new group of Leaf fans and that have not seen any playoff success. And we understand that, but I think the media, it's just be stretching it out and reading, to me, it's just making things up when you're something to talk about, basically, when you go as far as body language of a player. I don't know. I just don't think it's right. And then the whole thing with Sheldon Keefe's comment after the Arizona game and about the elite players not being whatever, they don't have elite players, we do. And then retracting those comments. For me, that's where it comes down to Sheldon Keefe. He needs to be coached himself still, I think, because
I agree.
Because he should know by now, there's no reason for him to go out into the media and say that. I mean, that was dumb.
Well, to me, the dumbest part is walking it back.
That's the part.
If you're going to say it, own it.
Yeah. The only thing is
deal with your players in the room however you feel you need to, but stand by what you say. In this case, I will say that, I've never heard, if you're going to compare the culture between the Leafs and the Raptors, I've never heard Nick Nurse walk back a comment.
No.
Because he's called out players before.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a useful tool, and the coaches don't have a lot of tools. So sometimes you need to do that.
Yeah.
And your players, if they're adults, they need to take it. So but I don't think that Keefe, I think the media made a big deal, seems to be, that they thought that that Keefe was walking it back because of the players were offended. And that came into the whole body language thing and da-da-da-da-da. That's where the speculation came in. And I disagree. I don't think Keefe walked it back because of them. Because of the players. I think Keefe walked it back because he recognized that the media was going to make a huge deal out of it.
Yeah, but by doing that, though, they made even a huger deal, the fact.
Exactly.
Right?
So that's where the mistake was. He needed to stand by it. And if he was asked about it again, he needed to just say, look, you know, at that point, I'm handling it in-house, and that's all I'm going to say about it. End.
Yeah, that's where, definitely... I think it was Sheldon Keefe's problem. It was wrong for him to bring that up again. Because, they asked Mitch about it. Mitch came out and said, yes, he had the conversation. And he said, those things stay behind closed doors. And that was it. That should have been the end of it right after Mitch Marner said that. And Sheldon Keefe did not have to come out to the media and explain it. And if he was asked about it, like you said, he could have just said the same thing Mitch said. Yeah. It's done and over with. Let's move on. But he didn't, and then he pays for it, right?
Yeah. Well, and you can't discount to how all of this stuff then hangs on the team. And that feeds into not just the narrative, about the culture, but also what we're seeing on the ice.
Yeah.
Because then all of this is it's just more fodder.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it hangs on them because as much as they like to say they don't listen to the media, they don't read press clippings,
They do.
They do. Or at least it gets to them because it filters down.
Yeah.
Because even if it's not coming from something they've read, they all know people who are bringing it back to them, friends, whatever, family.
Yeah. They're hearing about it through other channels. That's for sure. Yeah. So, we could go on about this for quite a while, but I just thought it's somewhat ridiculous. Some of the comments coming from the media and just making up these things as they go along, and it's
not like I think that the media should be homers and prop up the team. Yes, you do have to be objective and unbiased, but at the same time, is it beneficial to you as a person covering the team to be part of the process that tears them down?
Well, never mind.
Like, what would you rather cover? Would you rather cover success, or do you want to keep, covering misery? Like, how much fun is that day to day?
Well, it's kind of funny that you say that because on Hockey Night in Canada, I don't know what it is about them, but I'm almost thinking like, why don't you put the Leafs then on like an alternate channel or something, like on, I don't know, like on the Sportsnet channel, like put the Canadians, the Habs, on your main CBC network with some of the comments that they're.
Well, yes, because the Habs are the underdog story. Yeah. So they definitely want to uplift them.
I'm not gonna constantly. Yeah, no, they're the best thing since anything, basically. And I just had enough. Like, I mean, they were like last night. They were going on about how Tavares, all his goals have been on the power play. Well, so what? He scored goals. What, they don't count because they're all in the power play? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like what? Like he just scored that goal and they're already putting it down. And I'm like, what? You're not supposed to be happy that you scored? Like, regardless of whether it's 5-on-5 or on the power play? I don't know. I just think some of their comments on Hockey Night in Canada are like, I used to like Chris Cuthbert, but he's almost becoming like that other loser. What was his name? Jim Hewson. He's almost
well, there's the narrative there. Is that it's like they have to be, more than unbiased when it's Leafs. Yeah. Anyways, but
things can only get better, right? So hopefully we'll try and keep this on a positive here. But definitely I think the Leafs are going to be very happy to say goodbye to October. But the start of November is not going to be any easier for them. They're going to finish their California road trip right now as we're doing this podcast in Anaheim, and then they come back home to play Philadelphia, who's a hot team with Torts there behind the bench. Mm-hmm. And then they have a back-to-back on the weekend with the Bruins on Saturday night at home, and then in Carolina on Sunday.
Yeah, and then the second week in November, we play Vegas again, and then Pittsburgh and Vancouver, which is a rare back-to-back at home.
Yeah, so like we said before, Philadelphia is doing pretty good right now, and they're on. I think they're first in the league as of today, right now. And then having the Bruins, lovely Brad Marchand has come back just in time.
They're doing really well. They're like leading our division right now.
Yeah, and then of course Carolina has been nobody really pays attention to them much, but they've been doing well. They've been winning, and. Vegas, we already saw them, so hopefully we should. That's a thing that game should be. We should be motivated to beat them, definitely. Like after that performance that we had in Vegas, and then Pittsburgh and Vancouver. I mean, they basically have the same record as us. They did start off pretty well, but then now they slowed down. So and then Vancouver, I guess a lot of. They've been in the news quite a bit with Brucey Boudreau there.
That's a struggling team as well. So, but that's a team that, we've been saying all along. And that's part of the problem we've been having is we're not beating the teams we should be beating. And that's a team that we should dominate. And they usually come to play when they play
Saturday night
as well.
It'll be Saturday night on Hockey Night in Canada. So they'll be ready to go. And we're going to be counting these games that the Leafs should be winning, that they're not. And hopefully they're not doing too well right now on that towards the end of the season when we look back, because these points are very important come the end of March and April. So it's going to be interesting the next couple of weeks. But before we go, we want to make sure, just to let you know, to make sure you follow us on social media, as we have a surprise coming up towards the end of this week that you won't want to miss. So be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Our handle is at LTL1917. Also, a reminder to please leave us a rating or review and let us know what you think of the show. It's easy on Apple and Spotify, and it's important for our show to get more exposure as a source for Leaf content. So we thank you for taking the time.
And as well, we do have a YouTube channel, and we use that to post game day video and also some other videos from various different appearances that we've had on some YouTube shows like Hockey Time Machine. And we also have our website, ladiestalkinleafs.com, where we post, we have some like good reading area for books that we've read to do with hockey, and a blog section. And of course, you can always listen to our shows there as well.
Yeah, so we want to thank our healthcare workers, as always, and first responders for everything that they do. Flu season is here, and we just want to get your flu shot, people, and and just stay safe and healthy.
Take care of yourselves, and thanks as always for listening. So until next time,
go Leafs, go.
Leafs, go.
Do you believe